The fluorescent lights of courtroom 7B buzzed overhead as Detective James Martinez sat rigid in the defendant's chair, his calloused hands folded on the oak table before him. For 15 years, those hands had served the Oakland Police Department with distinction, pulling civilians from burning cars, disarming dangerous suspects, and bringing justice to countless victims. Now, those same hands were accused of corruption, of planting evidence, of betraying everything he'd sworn to protect. James's eyes swept across the packed courtroom. Every seat was filled. Some faces showed support, fellow officers who refused to believe the charges. Others displayed barely concealed satisfaction, rivals who'd always resented his success rate and the accolades that came with it. The media circus outside had been relentless for 3 weeks. News vans lined the courthouse steps. Headlines screamed about dirty cops and fallen heroes. His name, once synonymous with integrity, had become a punchline on late-night television. The prosecution's lead attorney, Marcus Webb, stood before the jury like a predator circling wounded prey. Webb was a career maker, known for his theatrical presentations and his ruthless efficiency in destroying law enforcement officers accused of misconduct. He'd built his reputation on cases like this, and James could see the hunger in his eyes. This wasn't just another trial. This was Webb's ticket to higher office, maybe even a judgeship. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Webb began, his voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade, "we're not here today because of a mistake. We're here because of a calculated, deliberate betrayal of public trust." He paused, letting the words hang in the air like poison. Detective James Martinez didn't accidentally mishandle evidence. He didn't make an honest error. He systematically planted narcotics in Carlos Mendez's vehicle to secure a conviction, to boost his arrest record, to feed his ego. Sarah Martinez sat 3 rows back, her body trembling despite the warmth of the crowded courtroom. At 34, she'd always been the strong one, the nurse who kept her composure during 12-hour shifts in the emergency room, who'd stitched wounds and calmed panicked patients without flinching. But watching her husband being crucified in public was breaking something fundamental inside her. Beside her, her mother Elena held 3-year-old Emma, trying to keep the little girl distracted with a coloring book. Emma, however, wasn't interested in crayons. Her bright hazel eyes, identical to her father's, kept darting toward the front of the courtroom. She didn't understand the legal terminology or the weight of the accusations, but she understood fear. She could feel it radiating from her mother, could see it in the tight line of her father's shoulders. "Mommy," she whispered, tugging on Sarah's sleeve, "why is that man yelling at Daddy?" "SHH, baby. Not now," Sarah murmured, her voice cracking. She couldn't explain this to her daughter. How could she tell Emma that the world thought her hero father was a criminal? How could she make a 3-year-old understand that sometimes innocent people get hurt by lies? Webb clicked a remote and the courtroom's large monitor flickered to life. Security footage appeared, grainy but unmistakable. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. 3 months ago. A figure in police uniform approached the evidence room door, swiped a keycard, and entered. 2 minutes and 33 seconds later, the figure emerged and walked away down the corridor. "This footage," Webb declared, pointing dramatically at the screen, shows Detective Martinez entering the evidence room at approximately midnight, alone, after hours, with no legitimate reason to be there. He advanced the footage, showing a clearer shot of the man's profile. Facial recognition software confirms this is indeed James Martinez, badge number 2847. James's attorney, Patricia Gomez, a scrappy public defender with 15 years of experience, made notes furiously. She'd warned James that the video would be damaging, but seeing it projected for everyone to witness felt like a physical blow. Patricia was good, one of the best, but she was fighting an uphill battle with limited resources against the full weight of the district attorney's office. The prosecution continued their opening statements with surgical precision. They presented entry logs showing James's keycard being used. They displayed chain of custody documents with irregularities. They outlined the original drug case against Carlos Mendez, a suspected mid-level dealer, and showed how the evidence quantities seemed to increase after that midnight visit to the evidence room. The narcotics found in Mr. Mendez's vehicle, Webb explained to the jury, initially weighed 2.3 kilograms according to the arresting officer's report. But when processed through evidence intake, the weight was recorded as 3.7 kilograms. That's a difference of 1.4 kilograms, enough to escalate the charges from possession to intent to distribute, dramatically increasing the potential sentence. Outside the courthouse, in the parking structure reserved for official vehicles, German Shepherd Rex paced inside his temperature-controlled patrol car. At 5 years old and 78 pounds of pure muscle and loyalty, Rex had been James's K-9 partner through everything. They'd trained together at the academy, had survived a shootout in East Oakland that left James with a scar across his ribs, had located missing children and tracked fleeing suspects through the darkest nights. Rex sensed something was terribly wrong. His partner's scent was nearby. He could smell James even from the parking structure, but they weren't together. The separation was unusual, distressing. Rex whined, a high-pitched sound of anxiety, and scratched at the car's interior mesh barrier. Officer Mike Torres, assigned to watch the K-9 during trial proceedings, tried to calm him. "Easy, boy, easy. He'll be back soon." But Rex knew better. Dogs possess an intuition that humans have long forgotten. Rex knew his partner was in danger, not physical danger, but something else, something that made James's scent carry notes of fear and desperation. The dog's training told him to wait, to be patient. His heart told him to break through the car and find his partner. Back in the courtroom, Webb moved in for what he clearly hoped would be a devastating finish to his opening statement. This isn't about one bad cop, ladies and gentlemen. This is about trust. Every day, we trust law enforcement to protect us, to uphold the law, to handle evidence with integrity. When that trust is broken, when an officer like James Martinez abuses his position, he doesn't just hurt one defendant, he damages the entire justice system. Sarah felt Emma squirm in her grandmother's lap. The little girl had given up on coloring and was staring intently at her father. "Daddy didn't do bad things," Emma said suddenly, her voice small but clear enough to carry several rows. A few people turned to look. Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment and heartbreak. "Emma, please," Sarah began. "But Mommy, Daddy and Rex were together. Rex knows. Rex always knows where they go." Sarah's mother quickly shuffled Emma out of the courtroom, the little girl's protests echoing until the heavy doors closed behind them. James had heard his daughter's voice, had turned slightly in his chair. For the first time that day, tears threatened to break through his stoic facade. Judge Patricia Henderson, a stern African-American woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose, banged her gavel. "Order. Let's maintain decorum." She'd been on the bench for 32 years and had seen every type of case imaginable. This one troubled her more than most. The evidence seemed compelling, but something about Martinez's demeanor didn't fit the profile of a corrupt officer. Then again, she'd been fooled before. As Webb concluded his opening statement and returned to his table with visible satisfaction, Patricia Gomez stood to present the defense's opening. She was fighting an uphill battle, and everyone in that courtroom knew it. But as she approached the jury, her spine straightened with determination. "Members of the jury," she began, her voice strong despite the odds stacked against her client. "What you've heard today is a compelling story, but it's not the truth. And over the course of this trial, we will prove that Detective James Martinez is not a criminal. He's the victim of an elaborate frame-up designed to destroy him and protect the real criminals." The words hung in the air, bold and seemingly impossible to prove. But somewhere in the parking structure, Rex's ears perked up, as if sensing that the fight for his partner had only just begun. The dog's instincts, honed through years of training and an unbreakable bond with James, told him that the truth would eventually emerge. It would just take the faith of a 3-year-old girl to unlock it. Day 3 of the trial dawned gray and merciless, the kind of Oakland morning where fog rolls in from the bay and refuses to lift. Sarah Martinez had barely slept, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling of their bedroom while James tossed restlessly beside her. The prosecution had been building their case methodically, witness by witness, document by document. But everyone knew today would be different. Today, the prosecution's star witness would take the stand. Officer Derek Phillips. Sarah remembered the first time she'd met Derek, 8 years ago at a department barbecue. He'd been the young recruit fresh out of the academy, eager and idealistic, looking up to James like a younger brother admiring his hero. James had taken Derek under his wing, had shown him the ropes, had saved his life during a domestic violence call gone wrong when a suspect pulled a knife. They'd been partners for 2 years before Derek transferred to a different unit. He'd been the best man at their anniversary party. He'd held baby Emma in the hospital, tears streaming down his face at the miracle of new life. Now, as Derek walked toward the witness stand in his crisp dress uniform, Sarah felt bile rise in her throat. How could he do this? How could he betray the man who'd treated him like family? Derek's hand rested on the Bible as he took his oath. "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God." His voice was steady, practiced. Sarah wanted to scream that God was watching, that lying under oath was a sin that would follow him forever. But she sat frozen, her mother's hand gripping her so tightly that her fingers went numb. Marcus Webb approached the witness stand with the confidence of a man who knew he'd already won. "Officer Phillips, how long have you known Detective James Martinez?" 8 years, sir, since I joined the Oakland PD. "Would you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Derek's eyes flickered briefly toward James, then away. "We were close. He was my training officer, my partner for a time. I considered him a mentor, a friend." The past tense wasn't lost on anyone in the courtroom. Webb nodded sympathetically, as if Derek were the victim here. "I know this must be difficult for you, Officer Phillips, but please tell the jury what you witnessed on the night of October 15th. Derek took a deep breath, and Sarah could see he was preparing himself, getting into character. It made her sick. "I was working late, finishing reports in the squad room. Around 11:30 p.m. I saw James, Detective Martinez, heading toward the evidence storage area. He looked agitated, nervous." "Did you think that was unusual?" "Very. There was no reason for him to be accessing evidence at that hour. Most officers were gone for the day. I thought maybe he'd forgotten something in his locker, so I didn't think much of it initially." Webb paced before the jury box, letting the testimony sink in. "What happened next?" "About 20 minutes later, I needed to retrieve something from my own locker, which is near the evidence room. I saw James coming out. He was carrying something, a dark bag like a gym bag. When he saw me, he looked startled. Guilty." "Guilty," Webb repeated, as if tasting the word. "Did he say anything to you?" "He said, 'Derek, what are you doing here?'" His voice was sharp, defensive. "I asked him the same thing. He said he was just checking on some case files, but he wouldn't look me in the eye. Then he walked away quickly." James sat motionless at the defense table, but Sarah could see the muscle twitching in his jaw. She knew that it meant he was fighting to control his rage. Patricia Gomez touched his arm gently, a reminder to stay calm. "Officer Phillips," Webb continued, "in the days following that night, did you notice any changes in Detective Martinez's behavior?" "Yes. He became distant, paranoid. He kept asking me if I'd mentioned seeing him that night to anyone. He said it would be better if I forgot about it, that it wasn't important. But the way he said it felt like a threat." "A threat?" Webb's eyebrows rose theatrically. "Not explicitly, but there was an implication. James has a lot of influence in the department. I'm younger, less experienced. I felt pressured to stay quiet." "Lies, all lies." Sarah's vision blurred with tears of fury and helplessness. This man whom they'd welcomed into their home, who'd eaten at their table, who'd played with their daughter, he was destroying them with calculated, deliberate falsehoods. "What made you decide to come forward?" Webb asked gently, as if Derek were some kind of hero. Derek's face arranged itself into an expression of tortured nobility. "My conscience. I became a police officer to uphold the law, not to cover for those who break it. No matter how much I respected James, I couldn't let him get away with corrupting evidence. The system only works if we all maintain our integrity." The irony of a liar talking about integrity nearly made Sarah laugh hysterically. She bit her lips so hard she tasted blood. Patricia Gomez stood for cross-examination, her expression sharp as broken glass. "Officer Phillips, you mentioned that you considered Detective Martinez a friend, a mentor. Isn't it true that 3 months before this alleged incident, Detective Martinez filed a complaint about your conduct during a traffic stop?" Derek's composed facade cracked slightly. "That was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding where you were accused of using excessive force against a suspect. A complaint that was under internal investigation. A complaint that could have cost you your badge." "The investigation cleared me," Derek shot back. "Only after Detective Martinez supposedly committed this crime. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" Webb objected, and the judge sustained it, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Patricia continued hammering away, pointing out inconsistencies in Derek's timeline, questioning why he'd waited 3 weeks to report what he'd allegedly witnessed. But the damage was done. The jury had heard a fellow officer testify against James, and that kind of betrayal carried devastating weight. When court adjourned for the day, Sarah drove home in silence, her mother and Emma in the back seat. James had been taken back to county holding. He'd been denied bail given the severity of the charges. The house felt hollow without him, like a body missing its soul. That night, after Emma's bath, Sarah tucked her daughter into bed beneath a canopy of glow-in-the-dark stars. Emma clutched her favorite stuffed animal, a small plush police dog that James had won for her at a carnival. "Mommy," Emma said, her voice small in the darkness, "that man was lying today. The one who said Daddy did bad things." Sarah's throat tightened. "Baby, it's complicated." "No, Mommy, Rex knows the truth. Rex was with Daddy. Rex is always with Daddy when he works." Emma sat up, her eyes fierce with childish certainty. "We need to ask Rex. He'll tell everyone where they really were." "Emma, sweetheart, dogs can't talk. They can't testify in court." "But Rex is smart. Daddy says Rex is the smartest dog in the whole police. Rex remembers everything." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "Why won't anyone listen? Rex knows. Rex can show them." Sarah pulled her daughter close, both of them crying now. "I know, baby. I know you believe that, but the grown-ups, they don't understand." Emma pulled back, her small face set with stubborn determination that reminded Sarah achingly of James. "Then I'll make them understand. I'll talk to Rex myself. He'll help Daddy. I know he will." "Emma, I promise, Mommy, I'll fix this, Rex and me together." As Sarah turned out the light and closed the door, she heard Emma whispering to her stuffed dog, making plans that only a 3-year-old could believe in. Plans that involved a police dog, the truth, and a faith so pure it could move mountains. If only Sarah knew that sometimes the impossible plans of children are exactly what the universe has been waiting for. Outside, miles away in the police kennel, Rex lifted his head from his paws and howled, a long, mournful sound that echoed through the night like a promise, or perhaps a prophecy. The courtroom felt different on day 5. The air was thick with tension, charged with the electricity that comes before a storm breaks. Patricia Gomez stood before Judge Henderson with a file folder in her hands and determination etched into every line of her face. She'd spent the previous night researching precedents, making calls, and preparing for the most unconventional motion of her career. "Your Honor," Patricia began, her voice cutting through the murmur of the crowded courtroom. "The defense moves to have K-9 Officer Rex brought to this courthouse as material evidence." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Marcus Webb shot to his feet so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Objection! Your Honor, this is absurd. Counsel is turning this trial into a circus." Judge Henderson raised her hand for silence, her sharp eyes fixed on Patricia. "Counselor Gomez, I assume you have a compelling reason for this highly unusual request." "I do, Your Honor." Patricia opened her folder, pulling out documents. "K-9 Rex wears standard-issue GPS tracking equipment during all patrols and operations. This includes a primary system linked to dispatch, but also a backup independent tracker for redundancy, standard protocol for all police dogs since 2019. These devices log location data continuously." Webb's face reddened. "Your Honor, the prosecution has already submitted Detective Martinez's GPS logs from his patrol vehicle. They show the vehicle's location," Patricia interrupted. "Not necessarily the detective's location. Detective Martinez could have left his vehicle, but Rex, as his K-9 partner, would have been with him at all times during active duty. The dog's independent GPS tracker would provide irrefutable proof of where Detective Martinez actually was during the times in question." The judge leaned back in her chair, removing her glasses to clean them, a gesture those who knew her recognized as a sign she was deeply considering something. Why wasn't this evidence submitted during discovery? "The device malfunctioned, Your Honor. It stopped syncing with the central system approximately 3 weeks before the incident. However, these units continue to log data locally even when they can't transmit. The data is stored in the device itself. We've only recently learned this from the K-9 unit technical supervisor." Sarah Martinez gripped the edge of her seat, barely breathing. Was this possible? Could Rex really be the key to proving James's innocence? Webb sputtered objections. "This is a desperate stunt, Your Honor. The defense is grasping at straws. Bringing a dog into a courthouse, it's unprecedented, undignified, and unnecessary. If they want the GPS device, have it submitted through proper evidence channels." "The device is permanently affixed to Rex's tactical vest as an anti-theft measure," Patricia countered smoothly. "It requires biometric authentication from Rex's handler, Detective Martinez, to remove without triggering a tamper alert that wipes the data. We can't risk losing this evidence." Judge Henderson studied both attorneys, then glanced at James Martinez. The detective sat with his hands folded, but his eyes showed something they hadn't in days: hope. The judge had presided over hundreds of cases, had developed a sixth sense for truth and deception. Something about this felt important. "I'll allow it," she said finally, "but the dog will not enter the courtroom itself. He can be kept in the courthouse holding area. Defense can examine the GPS device under supervision. If you can extract viable data, we'll evaluate its admissibility. This court stands in recess for 2 hours." The gavel struck and the courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters bolted for the doors. Webb threw his files down in frustration. Sarah burst into tears of relief, while her mother Elena clutched Emma tightly. "Mommy, Mommy," Emma's excited voice cut through the noise. "They're bringing Rex. Rex is coming. I told you he could help." Within 90 minutes, Officer Mike Torres arrived with Rex in a transport vehicle. The German Shepherd seemed to sense the importance of the moment, his ears alert, his dark eyes scanning every person as he was led through the courthouse's secure entrance. Dozens of people stopped to watch the magnificent dog pass, his muscles rippling beneath his sleek coat, his K-9 vest with its array of equipment visible. Rex was taken to a holding area in the courthouse basement, a secure room typically used for prisoner transfers. Officer Torres stayed with him, along with Patricia Gomez and a forensic tech specialist she'd hired. They began the careful process of examining Rex's GPS device. Upstairs, Sarah and Alina took Emma to the courthouse cafeteria during the recess. The little girl picked at her chicken nuggets, too excited to eat. "Can I see Rex, Mommy? Please. He probably misses me. And he misses Daddy, too." "Baby, Rex is working right now. He's helping Daddy's lawyer." "But I want to tell him we're here. I want to tell him thank you for helping." Emma's lower lip trembled. "Please, Mommy." Alina intervened gently. "Emma, sweetheart, how about some ice cream? They have chocolate chip." Emma's face brightened slightly, and Alina headed to the counter to order. Sarah pulled out her phone, checking for messages from Patricia, any update on the GPS data extraction. She was so focused on her screen that she didn't notice Emma slide out of her chair. The 3-year-old had been in this courthouse 4 times now. She'd watched, listened, and remembered more than any adult realized. She knew the elevators were down the hall. She knew the stairs that led to the lower levels. She'd seen the signs with arrows pointing down. And she knew, with the absolute certainty that only a child can possess, that Rex needed to know she believed in him and Daddy. Emma's small sneakers made no sound on the polished floor as she slipped out of the cafeteria. Her grandmother was still at the counter. Her mother was absorbed in her phone. No one saw the little girl in her blue dress with white flowers disappear around the corner. Sarah looked up 30 seconds later. "Emma?" The word came out as a question, then alarm. "Emma?" She spun around, scanning the cafeteria. Other diners looked up at her panic. "Alina, where's Emma?" Alina turned from the counter, 2 ice cream cups in hand, her face draining of color. She was right there. She was sitting right there. "Emma!" Sarah's scream echoed through the cafeteria. People jumped to their feet. Within moments, courthouse security was alerted. Sarah ran into the hallway, shouting her daughter's name, her heart hammering against her ribs. Not here. Not now. Not in a building full of criminals and strangers. 2 floors below, Emma pushed open a heavy door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." She'd seen police officers go through it earlier. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, lined with metal doors. But Emma could hear something, a sound she'd recognize anywhere, the distinctive whine of a German shepherd. "Rex," she called out, her small voice echoing off concrete walls. "Rex, it's me." The whining intensified, becoming urgent barking. Emma followed the sound to a door at the end of the corridor. Through the small window, she could see him, Rex, packing in the room, his handler Officer Torres talking to 2 other adults who were examining something on a tablet. Emma knocked on the door with her small fist. "Rex, Rex, I'm here." Inside the room, Rex's ears shot up. His entire body went rigid with recognition. He barked once, twice, then began pawing frantically at the door. Officer Torres looked up in confusion. "What's got into him?" Patricia Gomez turned toward the door and gasped. Through the window, she saw a tiny face, eyes wide and determined, small hands pressed against the glass. "Oh my God, that's Emma, Martinez's daughter." Torres moved quickly to open the door. "Sweetheart, you shouldn't be down here." But Emma was already pushing past him, running straight to Rex. The massive dog, trained to be controlled and disciplined in all situations, seemed to forget every ounce of his training. He dropped to his belly and army crawled toward the little girl, whimpering with joy. Emma threw her arms around Rex's neck. "Hi, Rex, I knew I'd find you. I told Mommy you could help Daddy." Patricia knelt down beside them, her professional composure cracking. "Emma, honey, does your mom know you're here?" Upstairs, Sarah's screams had brought every security officer in the building running. Courthouse staff checked bathrooms, searched every floor, reviewed security camera footage. Then a crackly radio transmission. "We've got her. Basement holding area. She's fine. She's with the K9. Sarah nearly collapsed with relief as she and Alina raced for the stairs, ignoring the elevators. How had Emma gotten down there? How had she found Rex? In the holding room, Emma pulled back from Rex and looked into his dark, intelligent eyes. She spoke with the seriousness only a 3-year-old can muster when delivering what she believes to be the most important message in the world. "Rex," she said clearly, "Daddy needs your help. Bad people are lying about him. You were with Daddy, you know where he really was." She touched the GPS device on Rex's vest, the one the adults had been examining. "You have to show them the truth. Can you do that? Can you show them where you and Daddy really were?" Rex sat perfectly still, as if he understood every word. His tail wagged once, slowly, deliberately. Then something remarkable happened. The fluorescent lights hummed in the basement holding room as Emma's small hand rested on Rex's tactical vest. The German Shepherd's entire demeanor had shifted from the disciplined K-9 officer to something more primal, more instinctive. His dark eyes locked onto Emma's with an intensity that made Officer Mike Torres take a step back. "That's unusual," Torres muttered. He'd been handling police dogs for 7 years and had never seen Rex break protocol like this. The dog was legendary in the department for his discipline, his unwavering focus. Yet here he was, practically melting under the touch of a 3-year-old girl. Patricia Gomez watched the interaction with the keen eye of someone who'd learned to recognize significant moments in the chaos of legal battles. Something was happening here, something that transcended the typical relationship between a child and a dog. Emma wasn't just petting Rex, she was communicating with him. "Emma, sweetheart," Patricia said gently, kneeling beside the child. "What did you mean when you said Rex could show us where your daddy was?" Emma didn't take her eyes off Rex. Her small fingers traced the various pouches and equipment on his vest with surprising familiarity. "Daddy checks Rex's special collar every day. He says it's important. He says it tells him where Rex goes, even when the computer doesn't work." The forensic tech specialist, a woman named Dr. Yolanda Chen, froze. She'd been examining the primary GPS unit, the one that had stopped syncing with the central system. "Wait, every day. Detective Martinez checked this device daily." Before work and after. He showed me once. There's a special button." Emma's fingers found a small, recessed button on the side of the GPS unit that none of the adults had noticed. It was barely visible, covered by a protective flap. "You have to press it 3 times, then once long. Daddy's fingerprint makes the light turn green." Dr. Chen's hands trembled as she pulled out her tablet. "Officer Torres, I need Detective Martinez's biometric data from the system. Now." "You can't seriously think," Torres began. "Now?" Dr. Chen's voice cracked like a whip. The urgency in her tone sent Torres scrambling for his phone. Emma continued speaking to Rex, her voice soft and soothing. "It's okay, Rex. These people are trying to help. They're going to look at your special collar and see all the places you and Daddy went. Then everyone will know Daddy didn't do bad things." Rex responded with a soft whine, then did something that made everyone in the room freeze. He stood, walked deliberately to the corner of the room, and sat facing the wall. His right paw lifted and scraped against his vest, specifically at the GPS device Emma had been touching. "He's trying to show us something," Patricia whispered, her lawyer's skepticism crumbling in the face of the impossible. "He understands what she said." "Dogs don't have that level of comprehension," Torres started, but his voice trailed off as Rex repeated the motion, more insistently this time. "Scrape, scrape, scrape against the GPS unit." Emma walked over to Rex and hugged him again. "Good boy, Rex. You're such a good boy. You're going to save Daddy." The door burst open with a crash that made everyone jump. Sarah Martinez stormed in, her face a mixture of relief, fury, and terror. "Emma!" She rushed to her daughter, dropping to her knees and pulling the little girl into a crushing embrace. "Don't you ever run off like that again. Do you understand me? Ever?" "But Mommy," I had to tell Rex. "I don't care, you scared me half to death." Sarah's voice broke as tears streamed down her face. I thought. She couldn't finish the sentence. In her mind, she'd imagined every parent's nightmare, losing her child in a building full of strangers, in a world that had already proven how cruel it could be. Alina appeared in the doorway, breathing hard from the run down the stairs, her own face streaked with tears. "Mija, thank God, thank God." Patricia touched Sarah's shoulder gently. "Mrs. Martinez, I know you're upset, and you have every right to be, but I think Emma might have just given us the breakthrough we desperately needed." Sarah looked up, her arms still wrapped protectively around Emma. "What are you talking about?" "The GPS device. Emma seems to know something about it that we didn't, something about a secondary access protocol." Dr. Chen held up her tablet where she'd pulled up Detective Martinez's biometric file. "Mrs. Martinez, did your husband routinely check Rex's GPS equipment? Daily checks, manual access?" Sarah wiped her eyes, confused by the question. "Yes, every morning and every night. He said it was part of his responsibility as a K-9 handler. He said most handlers got lazy about it, but he never did. He kept a logbook at home, manual entries of Rex's location data. He said you could never trust technology completely." "A manual logbook," Patricia's eyes widened. "Do you still have it?" "It's in his office at home, in his desk drawer, but what does?" "Officer Torres," Dr. Chen interrupted, her voice tight with excitement. "I need you to authorize a biometric override using Detective Martinez's stored fingerprint data. We need to access the backup memory in this GPS unit." Torres hesitated. "If we access it incorrectly, we could wipe the data, the anti-tamper protocols." "I know the risks," Dr. Chen snapped. "But if this child is right, if Detective Martinez was manually monitoring this device daily, it means he knew the primary sync was failing. It means he was deliberately preserving the local data. It means there's a complete record of everywhere Rex went, and therefore everywhere Detective Martinez went, stored in this device." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If the GPS data showed Rex, and by extension James, was somewhere other than the evidence room during those critical time periods, it would prove the security footage had been manipulated. It would prove James's innocence. Patricia pulled out her phone and dialed the courthouse. "Judge Henderson, Patricia Gomez, I need an emergency motion hearing. Immediately." "Yes, Your Honor, I understand court is in recess, but this cannot wait. We've discovered potentially exculpatory evidence." "Yes, Your Honor, 30 minutes. Thank you." Emma, still in her mother's arms, watched Rex intently. The dog hadn't moved from his position by the wall, his paw still resting against the GPS unit on his vest. It was as if he was holding vigil, protecting the truth contained within that small device. "Mommy," Emma whispered. Rex knew. He knew all along. He was trying to tell Daddy, but Daddy was locked away. So Rex waited for someone who would listen. Sarah looked at her daughter, at this tiny person who'd defied every rule, who'd risked punishment and danger, all because she'd possessed something the adults had lost: absolute, unwavering faith. Faith in her father. Faith in Rex. Faith that truth would prevail if only someone had the courage to seek it. Dr. Chen approached Rex slowly, holding her tablet which now displayed Detective Martinez's biometric authorization. "Officer Torres, I need you to hold him steady. Mrs. Martinez, Emma, you might want to step back." But Emma shook her head firmly. "No, I need to stay with Rex. He's scared too. He needs to know we're here." Sarah started to protest, but something in her daughter's eyes stopped her. This 3-year-old, who still believed in magic and fairy tales, who thought dogs could talk and heroes always won, maybe she understood something profound that the adults had forgotten. Dr. Chen positioned the tablet's biometric scanner against the GPS unit's access panel. The device beeped once, twice. A small LED light on its side began flashing red, then amber, then green. "We're in," Dr. Chen breathed. Her fingers flew across the tablet screen. "I'm accessing the local storage now. Oh my God, there's 3 months of continuous data, Complete location tracking, time-stamped, uncorrupted. Patricia leaned over her shoulder. Can you pull up October 15th, between 11:30 p.m. and midnight? The room fell silent except for the soft tapping of Dr. Chen's fingers on the screen. Sarah held Emma tighter. Rex's tail began to wag slowly, as if he knew, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment for weeks. Got it, Dr. Chen said, her voice shaking. She turned the tablet so everyone could see. On the screen was a map of Oakland with a bright blue line showing a movement pattern. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., the exact time the security footage showed James entering the evidence room. The blue line was 3 miles away from the police station, moving along the perimeter of Oakland's industrial district. Rex had been on patrol, which meant James had been on patrol. He wasn't there, Patricia whispered. He wasn't at the station at all. Emma smiled, hugging her mother tight. I told you, Rex knows. Rex always knows where they go. And in that basement room, with fluorescent lights humming overhead and a 3-year-old's faith vindicated, the truth finally began to emerge from the shadows where it had been buried. Judge Patricia Henderson's chambers had never felt so crowded. Within 25 minutes of Patricia Gomez's emergency call, the small office was packed with bodies. The judge herself behind her imposing oak desk. Both legal teams, Dr. Yolanda Chen with her laptop and tablets, Officer Mike Torres, and a hastily summoned IT forensics expert from the Oakland PD's cybercrime unit named Kevin Marsh. Sarah Martinez stood in the corner, still holding Emma's hand tightly, refusing to leave her daughter's side for even a moment. Rex lay at Emma's feet, the little girl's free hand resting on his head. The dog had remained unnaturally calm since the GPS data had been accessed, as if he understood that his part in this drama was reaching its climax. This better be worth the interruption, counselor, Judge Henderson said, though her eyes betrayed her curiosity. I've postponed jury instructions and cleared my afternoon calendar. Marcus Webb stood with his arms crossed, his carefully cultivated confidence showing its first real cracks. Your Honor, the defense is clearly engaging in theatrics designed to. Mr. Webb, I'll determine what's theatrical and what's substantive. The judge's tone could have frozen lava. Dr. Chen, you have the floor. Dr. Chen connected her laptop to the large monitor on the judge's wall. A detailed map of Oakland appeared, overlaid with coordinate grids and timestamps. Your Honor, what you're seeing is the complete GPS tracking data from K9 Rex's backup device, covering a 3-month period leading up to and including October 15th, the date Detective Martinez allegedly tampered with evidence. She clicked a button, and a blue line appeared on the map, tracing a route through Oakland streets. This shows Rex's movements on October 15th, starting at 6:00 p.m. when Detective Martinez began his shift. The line wound through various neighborhoods, pausing at several points. You can see routine patrol patterns, a stop at a convenience store robbery at 7:45 p.m., another call at a domestic disturbance at 9:20 p.m. Get to the relevant time period, Webb interjected impatiently. Dr. Chen's eyes flashed. I'm getting there, Mr. Webb. She advanced the timeline. At 11:30 p.m., Rex and Detective Martinez were here. She pointed to a location on the map. The industrial district near the Port of Oakland, approximately 3.2 miles from the police station. The room went silent. At 11:47 p.m., the exact timestamp on the security footage showing Detective Martinez entering the evidence room, Rex's GPS places him here. A red dot appeared on the screen, still in the industrial district. The location data shows continuous movement along this patrol route until 12:15 a.m., when Detective Martinez and Rex returned to the station for end-of-shift processing. Judge Henderson leaned forward, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. You're saying Detective Martinez was physically in 2 places at once? No, Your Honor. I'm saying the security footage timestamp is fabricated. The metadata has been manipulated. Webb slammed his hand on the judge's desk. Objection. This is preposterous. The prosecution's IT experts verified that footage. Then they missed something, Kevin Marsh interrupted. The cybercrime specialist had been examining Dr. Chen's data on his own tablet, his fingers flying across the screen. Or they didn't look hard enough. Your Honor, request permission to examine the original security footage files. Granted. How long will you need? Give me 20 minutes with the source files. Judge Henderson nodded to her clerk. Get him access, everything he needs. As Marsh disappeared into an adjacent office with multiple laptops, Webb's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Your Honor, even if the GPS data is accurate, it only proves where the dog was. Detective Martinez could have left the K9 in his vehicle. No, he couldn't have, Officer Torres spoke up, his voice firm. Department protocol requires K9 handlers to maintain direct control of their dogs at all times during patrol. Rex is trained to stay with his handler. They're never separated during active duty. It's drilled into every K9 team from day one of training. Patricia Gomez seized the moment. Furthermore, Your Honor, Mrs. Martinez has informed us that Detective Martinez kept a manual logbook of Rex's daily locations. We request permission to retrieve it from their home. It will corroborate the GPS data and show that Detective Martinez was actively monitoring Rex's backup tracker, something he would only do if he knew the primary system had failed. Sarah spoke up, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. I can get it right now. Our house is 15 minutes from here. Judge Henderson considered this, her sharp mind clearly working through the implications. Mrs. Martinez, take Officer Torres with you. Retrieve the logbook. Chain of custody must be maintained. She turned to Dr. Chen. Doctor, I want a complete analysis of that GPS data. Timestamps, coordinate accuracy, any indication of tampering or malfunction. Your Honor, there's more, Dr. Chen said, pulling up another screen. The GPS unit also logs device connections and data syncs. According to these records, the primary tracking system didn't fail randomly. It was deliberately disabled via a remote administrative command on September 22nd, 3 weeks before the alleged evidence tampering. The implications rippled through the room like an earthquake. Someone had intentionally cut off Rex's primary GPS tracking, likely assuming that would eliminate any record of James's whereabouts. They hadn't known about the backup device, or that James was manually monitoring it. Who has administrative access to disable K9 GPS tracking? Judge Henderson demanded. Officer Torres' face had gone pale. K9 unit supervisors, IT department administrators, and senior officers in the detective division. Get me a list, every person with that access level, now. Webb was sweating now, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. Your Honor, even if someone disabled the tracking, that doesn't prove. Mr. Webb, the judge's voice cut through his protests like a scalpel. You argued that the security footage was irrefutable evidence. Now we have GPS data suggesting Detective Martinez was miles away at the critical time, and evidence that someone deliberately disabled his tracking system. Either you have an officer who can be in 2 places at once, or someone in your evidence chain has lied to this court. Emma tugged on her mother's jacket before Sarah left with Officer Torres. Mommy, see, Rex knew. He knew the truth was in his special collar. He just needed someone to look. Sarah knelt down and kissed her daughter's forehead. You were right, baby. You were right about everything. She glanced at Rex, who looked up at her with those intelligent, dark eyes. Thank you, she whispered to the dog. Thank you for taking care of him. 15 minutes later, Sarah returned with a leather-bound logbook, its pages filled with James's meticulous handwriting. Each entry showed date, time, location coordinates, and notes about Rex's activities. Patricia flipped to October 15th. Here, she said, pointing to an entry. 11:47 p.m. Industrial District, Warehouse Patrol, Sector 7B Rex responsive, no incidents. Primary GPS still offline, backup functioning. She looked up at Judge Henderson. Detective Martinez documented exactly where he was when the footage claims he was at the station. Kevin Marsh emerged from the adjacent office, his face grim. Your Honor, I've found it. The security footage metadata has been altered. Someone with high-level system access modified the timestamps and date stamps. The footage is real. It shows Detective Martinez entering the evidence room, but it wasn't from October 15th. According to the original file creation data buried in the code, that footage was actually recorded on September 8th, over a month before the alleged crime. The chamber erupted. Webb staggered backward, his briefcase slipping from his hands. Patricia's eyes blazed with vindicated fury. The September 8th shift logs, Torres said suddenly, pulling out his phone and accessing the department database. That was the night of the semi-annual evidence audit. All detectives were required to access the evidence room to verify their case materials. Martinez was following standard procedure. Someone took legitimate footage of him doing his job, Patricia said slowly, the pieces falling into place, and altered it to frame him for a crime that happened 5 weeks later. Judge Henderson removed her glasses, her hands trembling slightly with barely controlled rage. Who has the technical capability and system access to alter security footage and GPS tracking within the Oakland Police Department? Marsh pulled up another screen. According to the audit logs, the security footage was accessed and modified from a terminal in the detective division. The login credentials belong to, he paused, his face going white, Officer Derek Phillips. The name hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Emma looked up at Patricia Gomez with the serene confidence of someone who'd never doubted the outcome. See, the bad man who lied. Rex knew it wasn't Daddy. Rex knew it was someone else. Judge Henderson stood, her face carved from stone. Bailiff, I want Officer Derek Phillips located and brought to this courthouse immediately. Not requested, brought. Issue a warrant if necessary. She turned to Marcus Webb, who looked like he might be sick. Mr. Webb, I suggest you prepare to explain to me how your office missed all of this during discovery. As courthouse security mobilized to find Phillips, Patricia knelt beside Emma and Rex. You did it, sweetheart. You and Rex. You saved your daddy. Emma simply smiled and hugged Rex tighter. I told everyone Rex knew. Nobody believed me except Rex. And the German shepherd, who'd been loyal and patient through weeks of separation from his handler, finally allowed himself to relax, his tail wagging slowly as the truth he'd been carrying finally came to light. Derek Phillips sat in his patrol car 3 blocks from the courthouse, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had gone white. His phone buzzed for the 7th time in 3 minutes, dispatch, trying to reach him. He'd been monitoring the police radio, had heard the chatter about urgent judicial order, and Officer Phillips report immediately to Superior. They knew, somehow impossibly, they'd figured it out. His mind raced through the past hour's events like a fever dream. He'd been grabbing lunch at a deli when his phone had exploded with texts from a contact in the courthouse, a clerk he'd been paying for inside information. Emergency hearing. K9 GPS data. They're looking at you. Derek's carefully constructed frame was collapsing like a house of cards. He'd been so meticulous, so careful. He'd spent months planning this, had called in favors, had used every technical skill he'd learned from his brief stint in the IT division before transferring to patrol. The security footage manipulation had been flawless. He'd tested it 3 times before implementing it. The GPS tracking shutdown had been executed through a supervisor's stolen credentials, untraceable. Except he'd forgotten about the backup device. The one James had mentioned once in passing, the independent tracker that continued logging even when the primary system failed. Derek had thought James was being paranoid, overly cautious as always. That obsessive attention to detail, the same trait that had made James a legendary detective, had become Derek's undoing. His phone rang again. Captain Morrison this time. Derek let it go to voicemail. His hands trembled as he reached for the burner phone in his glove compartment, the one that connected him to the people who'd bought his soul piece by piece over the past 18 months. "We have a problem," Derek said when Carlos Mendez's lieutenant answered. "The Martinez case is falling apart. They found GPS evidence." Silence on the other end, then a cold voice that made Derek's blood freeze. "You assured us this would work. You said Martinez would take the fall, the drug case would be dismissed, our operation would be protected." I know, but—" "There are no buts, Officer Phillips. You were paid very well to solve a problem. Instead, you've created a bigger one." The voice turned glacial. "We don't tolerate failure. You understand what that means." The line went dead. Derek stared at the phone, his reflection in the rearview mirror showing a man he barely recognized. How had he gotten here? How had an idealistic cop who'd once worshipped James Martinez become this? A corrupt officer who'd framed his mentor, who'd taken cartel money, who'd perjured himself in court. The answer came in fragments of memory. The massive gambling debts from the casino in Reno. The loan sharks who'd started making threats. The first small favor he'd done for Mendez's organization, just looking the other way during a traffic stop. Then bigger favors. Then outright collaboration. And finally, when James's investigation had gotten too close to exposing the whole network, the ultimatum: eliminate the threat or be eliminated himself. Derek had chosen survival. He'd chosen to destroy the man who'd saved his life, who'd taught him everything about being a cop, who trusted him like a brother. The radio crackled. "All units be advised. Warrant issued for Officer Derek Phillips. Approach with caution. Suspect may be armed and considered a flight risk." Flight risk? They were already treating him like a criminal, because that's what he was. Derek started the engine, his mind made up. He couldn't go to the courthouse. He couldn't let them arrest him, interrogate him. Once they dug into his finances, his communications, his movements, they'd find everything. The cartel payments, the evidence tampering. The whole conspiracy would unravel and he'd spend the rest of his life in prison. Or worse, the cartel would reach him even behind bars. He had maybe a 30-minute head start before they put out an APB. He had a go bag in his apartment, $15,000 in cash, a fake ID, a burner laptop. He could make it to Mexico, disappear into. A patrol car pulled up behind him at the red light. Derek's heart hammered. The officer inside was typing on his dashboard computer, probably running plates randomly. In seconds, he'd see the alert about Derek. The light turned green. Derek hit the accelerator, his patrol car lurching forward. Behind him, the other officers' lights suddenly flared red and blue. They'd seen the alert. They were coming for him. Derek's training took over, his knowledge of Oakland streets mapping escape routes in his mind. He took a sharp right, tires squealing, racing past shocked pedestrians. His radio exploded with voices. Unit 47 in pursuit of Officer Phillips, heading east on Broadway. All units respond, officer in flight. Phillips, this is Captain Morrison. Stop your vehicle, don't make this worse. But it couldn't get worse. Derek had already destroyed everything. His career, his integrity, his freedom, all gone. The only question now was whether he'd lose it in an American prison or while running for the rest of his life. He made it 4 more blocks before 3 patrol cars boxed him in at an intersection. Derek slammed on the brakes, his car skidding sideways. Officers emerged with weapons drawn, taking cover behind their vehicles. "Phillips, exit the vehicle with your hands up." Derek sat frozen, staring at his former colleagues through the windshield. These were people he'd worked with, joked with, trusted. Now they looked at him like he was just another criminal, because he was. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. Your family will pay for your failure." Ice flooded Derek's veins. His parents in Sacramento, his sister in San Jose. The cartel didn't make empty threats. Derek opened his car door slowly, hands visible. As he stepped out, he caught sight of himself in the side mirror, uniform rumpled, face haggard, eyes wild. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. He joined the force to help people, to make a difference. "On your knees, hands behind your head." Derek complied, the asphalt rough against his knees. As officers approached, he found himself thinking about James Martinez, about the man he'd betrayed, about the 3-year-old girl who'd somehow seen through his lies when the entire legal system hadn't. "Derek Phillips, you're under arrest for evidence tampering, obstruction of justice, and perjury." The cuffs bit into his wrists. "You have the right to remain silent." "I want to make a deal," Derek interrupted, his voice hoarse. "I'll tell you everything. The cartel connections, the money trail, who else is involved. But my family, you have to protect my family." The arresting officer, someone Derek had once trained with at the academy, looked at him with disgust and pity. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed your badge." As they loaded him into the back of a patrol car, Derek caught sight of his reflection one last time in the window. The face staring back was that of a stranger, a corrupt cop, a liar, a traitor. The worst part was that he could trace every decision that had led him here, each seemingly small compromise that had snowballed into catastrophe. The patrol car pulled away, heading toward the courthouse where he'd testified against James just days ago. This time, Derek would be the one sitting in the defendant's chair, facing the consequences of his choices. And somewhere in that courthouse, a 3-year-old girl and a German shepherd had accomplished what the entire justice system had nearly failed to do. They'd found the truth. Back at the courthouse, Officer Torr's radio crackled with the update. "Phillips in custody, en route to your location." Judge Henderson nodded grimly. "Let's reconvene in the courtroom. Full proceedings. I want everyone to witness this." Sarah Martinez held Emma close, tears streaming down her face. But this time they were tears of relief, of vindication, of justice finally breaking through the darkness. Her husband's nightmare was ending. The truth was coming to light. And it had all started with a child's unshakable faith and a dog who'd been waiting patiently to tell his story. The courtroom had never been this packed. Word had spread through the courthouse like wildfire. The Martinez case was breaking wide open. Every available seat was filled with off-duty police officers, courthouse staff, reporters who'd been covering the trial, and curious onlookers who'd heard whispers of something extraordinary happening. The bailiffs had to turn people away at the doors. James Martinez sat at the defense table, Patricia Gomez beside him, barely able to process what he'd been told during the emergency recess. Rex's GPS data, the footage manipulation, Derek's arrest. His mind kept circling back to one impossible fact. His 3-year-old daughter had somehow triggered the chain of events that would save him. Sarah sat in the front row, Elena beside her, with Emma between them. The little girl held her stuffed police dog, her legs swinging beneath the bench, occasionally standing on her tiptoes to see over the railing. She seemed remarkably calm for a child who'd caused such upheaval, as if she'd always known this moment would come. Judge Henderson entered, her black robe billowing behind her like wings of judgment. "All rise." The entire courtroom stood as one, the collective sound of bodies moving filling the chamber. When everyone was seated again, the judge's sharp eyes surveyed the crowd before settling on the prosecution table, where Marcus Webb sat looking like a man watching his career implode in real time. "Before we begin," Judge Henderson said, her voice carrying to every corner of the packed room, "I want to state for the record that in 32 years on this bench, I have never witnessed such a profound miscarriage of justice narrowly averted. What has been uncovered in the past 3 hours has shaken my faith in our system while simultaneously restoring it." The heavy courtroom doors opened. Two uniformed officers escorted Derek Phillips inside, his hands cuffed in front of him, still wearing his patrol uniform though his badge had been removed. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Several officers in attendance shot to their feet, faces twisted in rage and betrayal. "Order," Judge Henderson's gavel cracked. "I will have order or I will clear this courtroom." Derek kept his eyes down as he was led to a chair facing the judge. His face was ashen, his shoulders slumped in defeat. When he finally looked up, his gaze found James, and the shame and guilt in his expression was so raw that several people in the courtroom shifted uncomfortably. James stared back at the man who'd been like a brother to him, feeling something break inside his chest that had nothing to do with anger. It was grief, pure and devastating grief for the person Derek had once been, for the friendship they'd shared, for the ideals they'd both sworn to uphold. "Officer Phillips," Judge Henderson began, her tone like steel wrapped in ice, "you have been advised of your rights. Your attorney has been contacted and is en route. However, I'm told you've expressed a willingness to make a statement. Is this correct?" Derek nodded, his voice barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." "I must warn you that anything you say can and will be used against you in these proceedings and in your own criminal trial. Do you understand?" "I understand." Derek took a shaky breath. "I want to confess to all of it." Webb stood abruptly. "Your Honor, I must object." "Sit down, Mr. Webb," the judge commanded. "You'll have your chance to speak. Officer Phillips has the floor." Derek's hands trembled despite the cuffs. "Detective Martinez is innocent. He never tampered with evidence. He never planted drugs. Everything I testified to in this court was a lie." His voice cracked. "I fabricated it all to frame him." The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Judge Henderson allowed it for a moment before calling for order. "I manipulated the security footage," Derek continued, words tumbling out now like a confession he'd been holding back for too long. "I used stolen administrator credentials to alter the timestamps and metadata. The footage was real. It showed James entering the evidence room. But it was from September 8th during the routine audit, not October 15th. I also disabled Rex's primary GPS tracking system so there would be no record contradicting my timeline." "Why?" James's voice cut through the courtroom, raw with anguish. "Derek, why would you do this?" For the first time, Derek raised his eyes to meet his former mentor's gaze. Tears streaked down his face. "Because I was compromised. The Mendez cartel, they got their hooks in me. Gambling debts, then blackmail, then money. Your investigation was getting too close. They told me to eliminate the threat or—" He couldn't finish. "Or they'd eliminate you," James finished quietly. Derek nodded miserably. "I chose wrong. I chose to destroy an innocent man instead of facing the consequences of my own mistakes. I testified against you. I looked the jury in the eye and lied. I betrayed everything you taught me." His voice broke completely. "I'm sorry. God, James, I'm so sorry." Judge Henderson let the moment breathe, understanding that some truths needed to be witnessed, needed to be spoken aloud in a court of law. Then she turned to the forensic evidence spread across her desk: Dr. Chen's GPS analysis, Kevin Marsh's metadata report, the authentication logs, James's manual logbook. "The evidence before this court is irrefutable," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "The GPS data proves Detective Martinez was not at the police station during the time frame alleged by the prosecution. The forensic analysis proves the security footage was manipulated. Officer Phillips's confession corroborates everything." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the courtroom. This was not a case of reasonable doubt. This was a case of deliberate, calculated fraud perpetrated against this court, against the defendant, and against justice itself. She looked directly at James Martinez. "Detective Martinez, would you please stand?" James rose on unsteady legs, Patricia's hand on his elbow to steady him. Sarah gripped Emma's hand so tightly the little girl squeaked. "Detective James Martinez," Judge Henderson said, her voice softening for the first time. "You have endured weeks of false accusation, public humiliation, and separation from your family based on fabricated evidence and perjured testimony. No words can adequately address this injustice. However, the law provides a remedy." She lifted her gavel, and the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. "The charges against you are hereby dismissed with prejudice. You are free to go, effective immediately." The gavel came down with a crack that sounded like thunder. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the courtroom exploded. Officers leaped to their feet, cheering and applauding. James's legs gave out and he collapsed into his chair, his hands covering his face as sobs racked his body. Patricia threw her arms around him, crying openly herself. Sarah vaulted over the railing, protocol be damned, with Emma in her arms, running to her husband. James stood just in time to catch them both, holding his wife and daughter as if they were the only solid things in a world that had been spinning out of control. "Daddy, Daddy," Emma's voice pierced through the chaos. I told you Rex knew." James pulled back to look at his daughter, this tiny person who'd never stopped believing in him. "You did, baby girl. You saved me. You and Rex." "Speaking of Rex," Judge Henderson said over the celebration, a rare smile crossing her stern features. "Bailiff, would you please bring in K9 Officer Rex? I believe he's earned the right to witness this moment." The courtroom doors opened again, and Officer Torres entered with Rex on his lead. The German Shepherd's ears immediately perked up, his whole body going rigid as he caught James's scent. Torres barely had time to unclip the lead before Rex bounded forward, scrambling across the polished courtroom floor. The reunion between Handler and K9 was something few in that courtroom would ever forget. Rex reached James and simply melted into him, whining and licking his face while James buried his fingers in the dog's fur, laughing and crying simultaneously. Emma wrapped her small arms around both of them. "Good boy," James whispered to Rex. "Such a good boy. You kept the truth safe. You waited for someone to find it." Judge Henderson watched the scene, not bothering to hide the tears in her own eyes. Even the hardened bailiffs were wiping their faces. This was why justice mattered. This was why every safeguard, every check and balance, every protection existed for moments like this, when the truth nearly died but was resurrected by the most unlikely of heroes. "This court stands adjourned," Judge Henderson said, her voice thick with emotion. But nobody heard her. The courtroom had become something else entirely, a celebration of justice, of faith rewarded, of a family restored. Emma looked up at the judge and waved her small hand. "Thank you for letting Rex come inside," she said solemnly. "He needed to see Daddy too." Judge Henderson smiled through her tears and waved back. "Thank you, Emma, for reminding us all that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths." And in that moment, with James holding his family and his faithful partner, with justice finally served and truth victorious, everyone in courtroom 7B understood they'd witnessed something extraordinary, something that would be talked about in courthouse hallways and police station break rooms for years to come. The day a 3-year-old girl and a German Shepherd stopped a trial and saved an innocent man's life. 3 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of the Oakland Police Department's K9 training facility. Detective James Martinez stood in the outdoor exercise yard, watching Rex complete an obstacle course with the fluid grace that came from years of partnership. The German Shepherd cleared the final jump, raced back to James, and sat perfectly at attention, tongue lolling in what looked remarkably like a smile. "Good boy," James said, scratching behind Rex's ears. "You haven't lost a step." Officer Mike Torres approached with 2 cups of coffee, handing one to James. "You two look like you never missed a day. Hard to believe it's only been a week since you came back on active duty." James took a sip, his eyes never leaving Rex. "Feels like a lifetime ago, and also like it just happened yesterday." The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of emotions: relief, anger, grief, and ultimately, healing. The day Judge Henderson dismissed the charges, James had walked out of that courthouse a free man, but the weight of what Derek had done, the betrayal by someone he'd considered family, had left scars that wouldn't fade quickly. The department had placed James on administrative leave with full pay during the reintegration process, a fancy term for mandatory counseling and fitness for duty evaluations. The media attention had been relentless. Every news outlet wanted the story of the cop framed by his partner and saved by his daughter. James had given exactly one interview, sitting with Sarah and Emma, Rex at their feet, and told their story. After that, he'd politely declined all other requests. "How's Emma doing?" Torres asked. "I saw the ceremony invitation, honorary junior detective, that's pretty special." James smiled, the first genuine smile that reached his eyes in what felt like forever. "She doesn't fully understand what she did. She just knew her daddy was innocent and Rex had the proof. Simple as that. Kids see things more clearly sometimes. No cynicism, no overcomplicated thinking, just truth." The truth had ultimately brought down an entire network of corruption. Derek Phillips had cooperated fully, providing evidence that led to the arrest of 3 other officers on the cartel payroll, 2 evidence technicians who'd been falsifying reports, and 7 members of Carlos Mendez's organization. The drug case that had started this nightmare had been one thread in a tapestry of corruption spanning 18 months. Derek himself was awaiting trial, facing 23 counts ranging from evidence tampering to conspiracy to obstruct justice. His attorney had negotiated a plea deal, 20 years in federal prison in exchange for his testimony against the higher-ups in the cartel. James had been told Derek asked about him constantly, seeking forgiveness that James wasn't yet ready to give. "You think you'll ever talk to him?" Torres asked, as if reading James's thoughts. "Phillips, I mean." James watched Rex chase a training ball across the yard. "I don't know. Part of me wants to understand how he got so lost. Another part," he trailed off, shaking his head. "He tried to destroy my life, Mike. He put my family through hell. He looked Sarah and Emma in the eye, knowing what he was doing to them. But he also kept his family safe from the cartel. Doesn't excuse it, but—" "I know, that's what makes it so complicated." James finished his coffee. "Maybe someday, but not today." A van pulled up to the training facility, and Sarah emerged with Emma, who immediately spotted her father and Rex. "Daddy, Rex." The little girl took off running, her small legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. Rex, with the precision of his training temporarily forgotten, bounded toward Emma. The two met in the middle of the yard, the 3-year-old wrapping her arms around the massive dog while he licked her face enthusiastically. "I thought we agreed no surprise visits during work hours," James said, pulling Sarah into an embrace. "This isn't a surprise visit. This is an official visit." Sarah held up an envelope. "This came from City Hall. The mayor wants to see us this afternoon." James groaned. "More press conferences." "Sarah, we agreed." "It's not a press conference. It's private. Just us, the mayor and Chief Williams. They want to present Emma with her honorary badge officially." Emma ran up, breathless and beaming, with Rex trotting beside her. "Daddy, Mommy says I get a real badge, like yours." James scooped up his daughter, settling her on his hip. "That's right, baby girl. You're going to be an honorary junior detective." "Does that mean I can help Rex solve more crimes?" Everyone laughed. "Let's focus on you solving your homework first," Sarah said, ruffling her daughter's hair. That afternoon, in the mayor's office overlooking downtown Oakland, Emma stood in her Sunday best dress, blue with white flowers, the same one she'd worn during the trial, while Mayor Jennifer Cross knelt before her with a small gold badge. "Emma Martinez," the mayor said warmly, "for your courage, your unwavering faith in justice, and your instrumental role in uncovering the truth, the city of Oakland hereby recognizes you as an honorary junior detective." She pinned the badge carefully to Emma's dress. Emma stared at the badge in wonder, then looked up at her father. "It's just like yours, Daddy." "Even better," James said, his voice thick. "Yours means you never gave up. You believed when everyone else had doubts." Chief Williams, an imposing man with silver hair and 30 years on the force, stepped forward. "Mrs. Martinez, Detective Martinez, what your daughter did was remarkable. But what I find equally remarkable is what it revealed about our systems. We've implemented new protocols because of this case. Redundant tracking systems that can't be disabled remotely. Enhanced security footage verification. Mandatory GPS data preservation. And a complete overhaul of evidence room access procedures." "It shouldn't have taken my husband being framed to fix these things," Sarah said quietly. "No, it shouldn't have," the chief agreed. "And I take full responsibility for those oversights, but I promise you we're making changes, real changes." After the ceremony, the family drove to their favorite restaurant, a small Italian place where Emma loved the breadsticks and Rex was welcome on the patio. As they ate, Emma suddenly turned serious. "Daddy, is Officer Derek in jail now?" The question hung in the air. James and Sarah exchanged glances. They tried to shield Emma from the darker details, but she was perceptive beyond her years. "Yes, baby, he's in jail." "Is he sad?" "Very sad. He made very bad choices, and now he has to face the consequences." Emma considered this, twirling pasta on her fork. "Do you think Rex forgives him?" The question caught James off guard. He looked at Rex, lying peacefully under the table, his head resting on James's foot. Dogs didn't hold grudges the way humans did. They lived in the present, loyal and true. "I think Rex understands that people make mistakes, but he also knows who he can trust." "I'm glad he trusted me," Emma said simply. "When I went to see him in that room, he knew I was there to help. He showed me the special collar right away." "You were very brave," Sarah said. "But you were also very naughty running away like that. You scared Mommy and Grandma so much." Emma looked appropriately chastened. "I'm sorry, Mommy, but I had to talk to Rex. He needed to know we were fighting for Daddy." 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, James and Rex responded to a call about a missing child in East Oakland. Using Rex's tracking abilities, they found the 6-year-old boy within 40 minutes, cold and scared but safe in an abandoned warehouse. The boy's mother collapsed in gratitude when they returned her son. That night, James came home to find Emma in her pajamas, waiting up past her bedtime. "Did you and Rex save someone today?" "We did, a little boy who got lost." "I knew you would. You and Rex always save people." She hugged him tightly. "That's what heroes do." As James tucked her into bed beneath her glow-in-the-dark stars, Emma clutched both her stuffed police dog and the framed photo that now sat on her nightstand. A picture taken in the courthouse hallway, showing Emma with her arms around Rex's neck, both of them looking at the camera with perfect trust and understanding. "Daddy," Emma whispered as he turned off her light. "Yes, baby. When I grow up, I want to be a detective like you, and I want a partner like Rex, someone who always tells the truth, even when it's hard." James felt tears prick his eyes. "That sounds perfect, Emma, just perfect." Downstairs, Sarah was framing a newspaper article for James's office. The headline read, "Small Voice, Big Truth, How a 3-year-old and her father's K-9 partner exposed police corruption." But Sarah's favorite part was the photo beneath it, Emma standing beside Rex in the courthouse, her small hand on his head, both of them looking like they'd always known exactly how the story would end. Because sometimes, Sarah realized, faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that the truth exists and having the courage to seek it, even when everyone says it's impossible. And sometimes, justice needs the innocence of a child and the loyalty of a dog to remember what it's supposed to be. James came downstairs and wrapped his arms around his wife from behind, both of them staring at the photo. "She saved me," he whispered. "Our little girl saved me. She never doubted you, not for a second. I'll never forget that. No matter what else happens in my life, I'll never forget that my 3-year-old daughter had more faith in me than almost anyone else in the world." Outside, the Oakland night settled over the city, peaceful and calm. In the Martinez home, Rex slept at the foot of Emma's bed, a loyal guardian watching over the little girl who'd given him a voice when he needed it most. And in that quiet moment, with justice served and family reunited, everything was exactly as it should be. The smallest hero had changed everything, proving that truth doesn't measure itself in size or age or power, only in the courage to believe it exists and the determination to bring it to light. The end.